Hi, my name is Kristin, and tonight I'm talking about the dispositions that I feel make me a successful teacher. And then I will also be sharing the dispositions that I have identified as the areas for me that need the most growth. The first one that I'm talking about is professional conduct. I feel that as a teacher, I have a high respect for our profession and what we do every day. And I also highly respect my colleagues and being able to collaborate with them and work with them on different things. I also am very involved in my school, whether that's through after-school activities or just being an active part of a team during faculty meetings or during our weekly team meetings too. I feel like this leads into dedication. I'm also very dedicated to being a teacher. I make sure that I have a positive attitude each day at work. And when I'm working with other colleagues, I try to keep things positive and keep meetings positive. And I also make sure that I put in the time each day or each week that I'm prepared for my students. I feel like the next dispositions that I do well, I feel like are two that kind of go together, and those are compassion and advocacy. I feel like I'm a very compassionate person, and this shows in my teaching. I make sure that every morning when my students come into my classroom, the first thing that I do is I greet my students. So they know that they can choose how they greet me, whether it's a hug or a handshake or a high five, and we have some silly ones that we do too. But I make sure to take that time every morning to greet my students. And that just kind of gives me a quick chance to check in with them, see how their morning's going, see how their night was. We also have a couple different times throughout the week that are dedicated to each student having a chance to share something that's going on. So whether that's something good that's going on for them or something sad that they need to share or something that they just need to talk through. But my students know that we have that time every week where they have that time to share and for their voice to be heard. For being an advocate for my students, I feel like I take the time to seek to know them and to know them outside of school, as well as knowing them as learners. And I also help them work through problems. So if something happens on the bus or something if something happened at recess, then we take the time to work through things that can sometimes be messy. But we don't just brush those under the rug. We take the time to be problem solvers and work through issues that may have came up that day. Another disposition that I feel like I possess is honesty. I feel like as a teacher, it is my job to be a model for my students. And so I show them through my actions. So I am honest in our conversations that we have, and I hold them to that standard too. The next one that I feel like I have are high expectations for my students. I know that every student that comes into my classroom is coming in at a different level, and they all know different things. I still expect all of them to make growth throughout the school year and to show progress. And so some things that I do with my students when we are doing reading time, if they're reading a story to me and I'm doing maybe a running record on them, then after the running record, I will go back and show them something great that they did. Maybe a self-correction that they made, but then I also take the time to show them on this page, you made this mistake and here's what you could do next time to fix that. So that's just an example of my high expectations for students. And then the last disposition that I feel is something that I do well is fairness. I know that all students that come into my classroom are different, and that means that sometimes what's needed for one student may not be needed for another. This just reminds me of a poster that my school has hanging up that fair is not always equal. And so just because one student may need a special modification doesn't mean that that's proper for all of my students. So I find those ways to make sure that all of my students get the best education that they can, even if it's not the same that every other student might need. Some of the dispositions that I feel I can continue to work on and continue to grow on that will make me a better teacher. The first one is reflection. I love getting feedback. I love having people come in and watch me teach and then telling me, this is what I think you could work on, or this is what you could do better next time. I love doing that, but this is not something that happens a lot. And so as far as daily reflection goes, this is something I definitely need to work on. I don't take the time every day to sit down and think, oh, well, how did that lesson go and how can I make it better next time? And this is something that I definitely think that I can grow in. I also would like to find more time to go and observe others and see maybe what my teammates are doing well and how I can make my teaching practice better as well. Curiosity is another disposition that I feel I can continue to grow in. I love seeing my students' curiosity and how they learn, but I don't feel like I encourage this as much as I should. So I definitely need to find ways to encourage my students to be more outside the box thinkers. And instead of just in their relationships having curiosity, being able to use this towards their academics as well. I am at a new school this year. This is my first year at a new building, and we have a lot more diverse students than I have ever really worked with before. And this is really cool for me, but it's definitely different. So I have a lot of students in my class that English is not their first language. So something that I would like to do better this year is finding ways to embrace their language and embrace their cultures, and being able to incorporate that into our classroom better. I also am really working on making sure that my students know that it doesn't matter what their background is or where they come from or who they are, that our classroom is a very safe place for them. And that if they need to come and talk to me about something, then I am a safe person that they can come and talk to me about and they can share. I feel like a professional teacher is somebody who possesses these characteristics. And so I am going to continue to strengthen my teaching by growing in the things that maybe are a little bit weaker for me, though they are still important, and continuing to strengthen the dispositions that I already possess. Thank you.